Hey guys, it's Miss Connell, and I'm here to walk you through the Investigating Biological Compounds lab. You can find the link to this lab on the directions sheet for the Dropbox for this assignment. If you don't know where that is, it's in your course plan or course content. You're just going to have to look around to find it. Okay, so the first thing you were supposed to do is to view the tutorial. So we're going to view the tutorial together, and that's actually going to also be the same thing as the first phase on your lab sheet. So we're going to do that together. If your screen looks like mine, you can always maximize what this looks like by pushing Control+. And then if it's too big, you push Control-, and it'll shrink down a little bit. Okay? So let's get started. Let's view the tutorial. You can choose your glove color. I'm going to choose green. And we are going to do the tutorial together. This thing likes to talk at you, so I'm going to turn the sound off real quick. There we go. Okay, so here's all the tools down here. You can choose the size of the screen. You can lock it so that it doesn't move around if you hit any of these arrows. I like to use the keyboard arrows on this lab. You can turn your sound off, and then you can zoom in and out if you need to. Like if you want to see everything at one time, you can do that too. And then if you click this house, it starts you all over from the beginning. So don't do that unless you really messed up. Okay, so we're going to use gloves. We're going to use clean pipettes. That's because we can't contaminate anything. So you'll notice everything is labeled very specifically, so make sure that you're following everything to the T. Okay, so here's the beginning of the tutorial, and this is also phase 1 on your lab sheet. So I want you to grab the water pipette, stick it in the beaker, and put it in the test tube. Then put your pipette back. Then I want you to grab some starch, put it in the next test tube, put it back. And we're going to test to see the presence of starch by using iodine. So if we put iodine with water, if we put iodine with starch, it's going to turn that dark color that you see. But if we put it with water, it's just that murky brown color. Okay? So right now it says observe the color of the starch solution in the water test tube. A dark blue or black color for starch indicates that starch is present. So here's your observation for phase 1. Okay, that the test for starch is dark blue or black for the test for starch test tube, but the starch control is this murky brown. Okay, we're going to move on to the next part of our lab, which is testing for proteins. So I am going to, there's protein test tubes here, okay, and on my lab sheet it says albumin, which is a protein, when it's present in the when it's mixed with sodium hydroxide and copper sulfate, will turn black. So it says protein control water, so it wants me to take a water pipette, put it in the test tube, and then it wants me to get the protein that we call albumin, just a type of protein, and put that in the test tube for protein. Okay, when we do these tests, we're going to use both sodium hydroxide and copper sulfate. So I'm going to pick this up, and I'm going to place a drop in each of the test tubes. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing with copper sulfate. Make sure that you're careful in where you're putting your liquids. Okay, so notice our observations here. Our control for protein in the water, it stays a really light blue. But in our test for protein, okay, the protein test, it's going to be this black color. So whenever there's a black result, that means that protein is present. Okay, and then we have to do our last control, which is testing for lipids. So over here it says lipid control water. So on our directions, it says place a pipette full of water into the test tube. Okay, and then it says take another pipette. Oops, I wasn't supposed to do that. Take another pipette for lipid, dunk it in the vegetable oil, and put it in the test for lipid test tube. Now the indicator solution for lipids is Sudan-3, so we're going to put some of the indicator in each of these test tubes. And in the presence of lipids, that Sudan-3 is going to turn bright red. So I know these are kind of not very different to you, but this is kind of real life science. I took a clean stirring rod and I stirred the first one and I took a clean one and stirred the second one. And you'll notice this one's just more clear and see-through, and this one is really bright and thicker. So that will be our positive test for lipid, is a bright red. Okay, so make sure you make those observations for each of these test tubes on your lab sheet. Okay, so we have our starch, protein, and lipids. Record those observations, and we'll move on to our unknowns in the next video. Good luck.